Welcome to the Future of Surrogacy, the podcast that explores the people, the innovations, and the ideas building the next generation of surrogacy. Our guest today is Angela Hartshorne. She is a board member of SEEDS, which is the Society for Ethics in Egg Donation and Surrogacy. She brings a rare 360-degree perspective to this conversation because she's not only worked in the fertility space for 32 years, partnering with clinics and reproductive endocrinologists around the world, but she has also lived this journey herself. Angela has been an egg donor and a gestational surrogate. She is the founder of a surrogacy agency called It's Time Surrogacy, and she's also a mom who walked through her own fertility struggles. That personal and professional mix has given her a very deep understanding of what's at stake and why ethics in third-party reproduction cannot be an afterthought. So in this conversation, we're going to cover what SEEDS is doing to define and promote ethical behavior in surrogacy and egg donation, the biggest ethical challenges facing our field today, from transparency to whether stronger state or federal laws are coming. And last, we're going to get a sneak peek into SEED's fall conference this November in sunny Costa Mesa, California. So with that, Angela, welcome to the Future of Surrogacy.
Well, thank you, and I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I was really excited because the conversations we have with agencies, SEEDS always comes up because SEEDS is really kind of the organization. And I don't want to take anything away from the Quad A or ASRM, or Resolve is another great one. But I was really, really excited. So why don't we start by giving people some understanding of what we've been doing in those 32 years, and then what inspired you to join the board of SEEDS?
So, a little bit of everything is the answer to the first question. I actually how I ended up in this field is that I was actually a teen mom. And to give myself marketable skills, I went to medical assistant school. And the one and only interview I ever went on for my medical assistant journey was at a fertility clinic in San Diego, California. And at the time, they actually hired somebody else. And so after a month, they called and said it didn't work out with who they had hired. And they wanted to hire me because I could draw blood, I could answer phones and all of that. So I worked my way up to OR. So I've sat in personally probably 3,000 egg retrievals, twice as many embryo transfers. And then I became an IVF coordinator in a practice where the IVF coordinator did all of the cases. And so that's where I started doing my third party stuff. Probably 1994 was the first time I saw a surrogacy case in motion, and I was in awe of what was happening. And then personally coordinating and managing happened around 1998. And by then I was completely in love, and I had been a gestational carrier at that stage. I had also been an egg donor, which at the time I was technically an anonymous donor, but I am now known to the resulting children from my donation. So that has been a lot of fun. So as the years have gone, when I started, there were no agencies, no support, no nothing. We were just the Wild West, trying to figure it all out, get our footing. And then agencies developed and the laws were getting clearer. There was great representation. And then as the industry grew, you start to realize, oh, we should be talking to each other. We should be connected. There was just no connection for a very long time. For most of the time I've been doing this. So when SEEDS was formed, I learned about SEEDS year 2, and I've been involved with SEEDS since year 2. And it was like, I had found my tribe. These people are like-minded and professionals, and they get it and they understand it, and we're having conversation. And I fell in love immediately. I started volunteering in the committees, specifically the conference committee for me, which was important because I wanted a voice there. Because I had been a surrogate and a donor and a fertility patient, and the little piece that not everybody knows about me is I'm also an adoptive mom. So this brought together a universe of people. And I'll probably sing SEEDS praise until I'm done with the industry, because I'll forever be thankful for them creating that community. and giving us all insight and resource. And then as I was in the organization, I applied and I was so thankful to be elected and be there. And so now I get to work closer with all of those that I've been watching and working with for years. So I am very glad to be on Seeds and here to talk about all of this today.
Yeah. Do you know that I'm also an adoptive mom? Yeah.
For me, this whole, it's just all one big world for me.
I
And
know.
so
I know. I agree. So that's what I actually, we went through the adoption process and then I actually started a business in adoption. That was just acquired by a nonprofit because we got to this point where we were growing and it was making money and we're like, should this be making money? Yeah. And so we donated.
yeah, it's a thing. And as I've been in this field, I learned very early on that having a strong moral compass is something that you have to retain and maintain. And because no matter which way we split all of this, there is a large amount of money that is funneled into the third party reproduction environment. And so that's where the development of seeds and communication and a community and integration, that is what is needed. And I'm so excited that Seeds has worked on their standards for agencies. There are also standards being developed for other professions, mental health professionals, accounting, or escrow, and lawyers and things like that. And it's just, finally, it's so
I
nice
agree.
to see.
Yeah. Okay. So let's, for people that don't know,
Okay.
what is the mission of Seeds?
I actually have it, and I wanted to make sure that I communicated it fully.
Perfect.
The Society for Ethics in Egg Donation and Surrogacy is a nonprofit group which started with the intent of defining ethical practices for egg donation and surrogacy programs. We are working to provide a self-regulated framework for professionals and other ethical guidelines which benefit all stakeholders in the industry. Seed strives to create and maintain a community which focuses on ethics in each and every facet of this process.
Mm-hmm.
Our organization understands the importance not only to the professional community, but to the general public in defining ethical business practices. So this remains a viable family building option for generations to come. A large portion of our efforts go towards educating our members through the Seeds Education Committee by creating, preparing, and facilitating educational opportunities for Seeds membership.
Mm-hmm.
In order to become a member and maintain membership, each member organization must meet certain educational participation guidelines in an effort to increase knowledge and ethical practices within each member's professional role. So that's the formal mission statement for Seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I will say, as a longtime professional and Seeds member, it really encompasses, we're just trying to give everybody the resources to do things ethically and have open and honest conversation. That's a big step, because anything related to reproduction of any kind can be a inflammatory topic to some. So it is nice to have a safe space to have these open and honest and complicated discussions.
Yeah, I really want to get into that because I have a couple questions around that, just in terms of like when you have a category like surrogacy that, is at its core compassionate and human, and yet in order to run a business in that category, there's competition, there's money at stake. And so how those two tensions exist. But we'll get into that in a second. Because the first question I wanted to ask is around like, because I know we're members, but I know some people don't join Seeds. And so I'm curious your point of view in terms of why wouldn't somebody join Seeds? Why wouldn't everybody be part of Seeds?
Well, the short answer to that is I don't know. Professionally, I would recommend anyone in this field should be involved in Seeds, especially if you're wanting a voice or a chance to understand it all thoroughly. Now, I will say that I think some may be hesitant because the truth is all of this is so new. And yes, we've been around a while now and we have grown and we are out there and reputable and striving for things. It's still, you know, some people that have maybe been around for a long time, it's just kind of like, well, why would I socialize with a competitor or something along those,
Right.
in my opinion, irrational lines? Or they may feel, well, I don't get to put my word in. I'm just sitting there letting people tell me these things. So I'm not real sure why anyone would want to avoid.
Yeah. Outside of cost, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're all seeing every day that the world is changing all the time. So coming together as a community and as a team is very necessary at this point in time. If you were hesitant to join Seeds before, definitely join now. International relations, birthright citizenship, the chaos of the world right now coming together is what we need more than anything, so that we're all on the
Yeah.
same page, that we're developing healthy professional framework. So that's what I would say to those that have been hesitant. I would definitely get involved at this stage and volunteer. Join those committees. Watch the brown bag educational programs. Get involved. If you aren't, now is the time.
Yeah. So I'm curious, you mentioned, you alluded to it a little bit in the beginning because there's so many components of egg donation and surrogacy journeys, everything from recruitment and intake to screening to matching to escrow and legal. There's so many components. And Seeds, you mentioned, is trying to tackle ethics in all of them, which is lovely. But are there major ethical challenges that bubble up to the top in terms of where you see Seeds being able to have an impact?
I think really tackling the escrow standards and getting the community involved in that. We've seen multiple scandals where
Yeah.
escrow companies have taken money. Another area that we will be able to help is any those families coming either here already or coming in to complete families in ways that perhaps we find concerning, whether it's large amounts of children or
Yeah.
things not being handled ethically throughout the process. And so those are the big hurdles, and we are actively tackling them all the time, and I think the community is talking about it now. This isn't the first time we've seen escrow scandals happen, but when they happened before, there wasn't social media,
Right.
wasn't the access to the news. Things were easy to hide. So Seeds is a great resource. Like, we're not hiding that stuff. We're dealing with that stuff. We're having those conversations and developing those standards with the necessary professionals to help counter everything that's happening these days.
Yeah, this question wasn't on our schedule, but now I'm just curious. So to me, because I come from a marketing technology data background, so many of those scandals that have come out recently, there are some issues in terms of data transparency and
Absolutely.
kind of a lack of oversight. Like how like that LA house where there were 21, like, and then the Mark surrogacy, it feels like because of a lack of oversight and because of a lack of data transparency into what people are actually doing, that's where I'm like, gosh, I want to get involved in Seeds in terms of figuring out how to get that going.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah, that's a big one, right? Because we're all relying on honest, open, transparent communication
yeah,
across all levels. I think that's life, though, right? It's
yeah,
really hard to stop someone whose intent is to harm you.
right,
So, really, what we can do is build the framework for that, set the standards, have a way for people to report those things,
right,
not be afraid to report those things,
yeah,
whether it's to Seeds or directly to the FBI. Last Seeds conference, we had I believe he was an FBI agent, talk to us about what are we looking for, what are things, and what do we do if we see it.
hmm.
So, uh, yes, data is really important.
I think what we talked about in terms of this is such a hugely compassionate, loving human journey, and yet there is, competition and money at stake, which
It's
those
business.
two things. And so like this idea of like if I'm competing with those agencies for surrogates, why would I ever share any kind of data that would give them a competitive edge or make me lose my competitive edge?
Well, and I think that's why it took so long for the industry to figure out that we needed Seeds. And I think that's
Yeah,
why there's still some people who don't partake. And they really shouldn't be looking at it that way. As
right,
much as this is a business and there's competition, this is humans.
right,
This is compassion. This is transparency. ethics, kindness, everything legal, uh, industry wise. I say what I always say, which is your moral compass needs to be strong.
Yeah.
You need to be a good human. And when you see not good humans or not good situations, you need to speak up. It is on us at this stage to regulate ourselves.
Right.
Now, I will say, as a professional, I do believe that government oversight is coming. I know that when I started this, the FDA wasn't in my life, but in
Right.
2005, the FDA entered my life.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of scandals that have gone on. They continue to go on, and we are feverishly, as a ethics group, doing the best that we can to tackle all of these things with transparency and honesty and professionalism. But it really is one of those things where I do think eventually, because to adopt my own children,
Yeah.
I had to go through a Department of Justice fingerprint background check.
Yeah. Same.
I had to go through a home study. And as much as third party reproduction is not adoption, I do understand where people may feel they don't need to be in that depth. But I mean, just solid background checks and really making sure that you're working with good people, I just think is something that really changes how things progress.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And again, like having gone through the home study process to adopt our
Ooh.
kiddos, same thing. Like I remember being kind of mad at this, like, why the heck am I having to go through this? Like, this doesn't feel fair.
No,
Um,
I was agitated for the same thing.
yeah, yeah, and I completely understand it because of
I do.
course, like this is somebody else's kiddo that
I
is
do.
trusting us, and so yeah, I understand the basis of it, but I do like what you're saying. You have to have a strong moral compass, but
Yeah.
there's no evaluation of that. And so if somebody wants to your point earlier, deceive, they can probably deceive at this point. And so I love that Seeds is doing as much as they possibly can to at least move in the right direction.
I do think on some levels they're serving as the compass.
Hmm.
And it's a great tool. And I do think there will be changes in our industry. I think they will come. I do think the government is going to step in at some point in time and regulate us. I have a lot of feelings about that, right? Some good, some probably not that
Yeah.
great. But at the same time, I'm aware enough to understand why people feel it is needed.
Hmm. Yeah, I think my fear is I don't think they regulated adoption correctly.
Oh,
Or
okay.
they did the best job that they could with the information they had at the time, but so many of the state codes on adoption were written pre-internet.
Yeah.
And so like they're archaic. And so my hope is that with surrogacy, they when they do, because I agree it's inevitable. And I'm raising my hand right now. If anybody wants help, I'm happy to be on those committees
Me
because
too.
yes.
Somebody's
Yeah.
out there and they're watching this. Like, I want to help because
Yeah.
I do think I agree with you. So, yeah, I do think regulation will come, and I understand why it will, even if I'm not really thrilled about it on all levels.
Yeah. I'm curious about your point of view because you're also an agency owner. In adoption world, agencies have to be licensed and they go through an auditing process every year to retain their license. And so I'm curious about your point of view in terms of do you think agencies should be licensed?
I do. I mean, that's probably not a popular opinion. The only state that's requiring that is New York. I think that that's probably a very simple thing that I say simple like it would be simple, but to say, hey, you at least have to register your agency. To me, that makes sense.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people probably don't feel like that because what's the struggle, right? Privacy. There's that. If it's registered, then what in the registration, what are you turning over in that registration? There's just so many levels, and that's where me and you are probably say, I'd like to be part of the talk, please.
Yeah.
Let's have some discussions.
Yeah,
So
but who knows? I'm not pitching or cashing on how it's developed. I just I'm glad that it is something that is kind of moving.
yeah.
I think I'm glad that it's something that's moving down the road. One of the ones that I was curious about was because we're talking to so many agencies, and this happened in adoption too, and it kind of bugs me. But an agency will be like, "Well, I know that agency over there is not doing the right thing," and you're like, "Well, then what do you do about it?" And they're like, "Well, you can report it to Seeds."
Yeah.
But I don't think many people are because they're afraid, I think, of some retribution or that they're afraid that that organization won't want to work with them anymore because there's all these interdependencies in terms of referral networks. And so, two questions. Well, one, your point of view on how agencies should handle that when they know that an organization, or they've heard through the rumor mill, and maybe they can't confirm it, and that's not their job to, but how do they report that in? And then what happens?
Right. So, a couple of things here. I do think you should report via a grievance with seeds to let them know the details. You can't just make blanket statements. There does need to be an element of proof there, and then that will go to the grievance committee. Now, here's what I will say. If you think there is, I'll give a perfect example of what happened to me with my own personal agency.
Okay.
The agency got a call. It was a lady who was in mid applying for an agency, and she called, and the question was this: I am I am getting ready to be a surrogate for with the agency that my friend is a surrogate for, but my friend has never met her intended parents, and this agency said I won't meet my intended parents either. Is that normal? And I'm going to be very honest, and in my reply here was that that is not normal. For the most part, people know who they're caring for. They have met them. And if there is some strange, weird reason that that is happening, there would be an explanation of sorts. I'll tell you what I did is I reported that situation to the FBI. And
Hmm.
the reason I reported that to the FBI is because it was concerning to me that
Mhm.
someone was going through a surrogacy journey as a surrogate and had no idea who she was going to be caring for. And I knew at this stage there was one in the application process and one actively pregnant. That's all I needed to know. And I encourage everyone to take that approach so that people higher than all of us can take a look at that.
Mhm.
If you don't have someone that's in the community as far as surrogacy or egg donation or sperm donation, you have no one, go to the Sieves webpage and submit a contact us, ask, give the situation, because I do think it's important that we do call out
Yeah.
the ones that are doing stuff that they're not supposed to.
Yeah, and so agencies can go on Seed's website and submit like a grievance, and then that
Yes.
goes to the grievance committee, and the grievance committee will explore it. But they're
Yeah.
not going to say like, "Oh, agency ABC told us that you were doing, X, Y, Z."
No, not like that. It's a whole process, and there's a hearing if that's needed. But the first step is to report it.
Yeah,
And the truth is, if there was really proof of something severe, I think everybody who's reading it or touching it is reporting it too.
yeah, yeah. I think the thing that I would be afraid of with regulation is how the oversight is handled with regulation, because in
Exactly.
adoption they got it really wrong.
Really wrong.
Mhm.
Really wrong. That's where, if they're going to do that, and I do worry that is the case, that it be done proper, because I do agree the adoption laws and processes that were put in place were not good.
Yeah.
But the the third party reproduction world, there's so many factors there: privacy, healthcare,
Oh,
body autonomy. And this is the stuff that I worry about if the government was to step in to regulate, right? I'm cautious.
I know.
Body autonomy is a big thing.
I
Privacy
know.
is a big thing. And in our country, things are different now than they were previously. And so that's the stuff that keeps me up at night.
I know. You and me both. I can see why people wouldn't want it, and I
Yeah.
can see why the category absolutely needs it.
It's a conundrum. Sometimes it's a struggle of like, okay, you know, but I think in the end, if everybody keeps the focus where it should be, which is family building,
Mhm.
and keeping that core and being good and fair and open and ethical,
Mhm.
things do very, very well. And they have. And it's kind of the coolest thing. I've been saying for 32 years, I have the coolest job there ever was.
I know. Yeah.
I'm not sure I could do any. I don't even know what I would do.
I know. I know. I'm sure you know Kim Surratt from
Yeah.
Surratt Lot. Yeah, who's one of my
Mhm.
favorite people. Yeah, but I think, I think she made a really good point. Well, she always makes great points, but I think one of the things that, the majority of people are doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And so, in order like to put all these kind of, for lack of, I don't want to say barriers, but extra steps onto an already arduous process, especially for the professionals in terms of oversight because of a few bad actors, sucks. Like, I think we can just say that
Yeah.
out loud. Like so many people are doing the right thing. And like you said, their moral compass is in the right place. And, but it's just the bad actors that, in order to prevent them, there needs to be some layer.
Something, some layer, some layer. I think that New York step of licensure, I think that's right.
Yeah.
It really, when you have to, I mean, just to get a business license or form an LLC, anybody can do that.
Yeah.
Anybody that thinks, and there are agencies that have opened like that. There's agencies that are former intended parents, former donors, former surrogates. I'm not saying that's bad, but when you just have one position in the journey and process, there's so much more.
Yeah.
And so for me, having been, a surrogate, a donor, an agency owner, an adoptive mom, a fertility patient, for me, the picture's so big and broad. I can kind of pull from all of those different areas of experience to help make things smooth and done
Yeah.
correctly, legally, ethically, all of that. But not everybody has that. And so any new agency definitely should be in seed so that they have at least access to that. And, if they had to register, it might give somebody a pause. Hey, what am I doing? Can I do this? Okay, so now somebody's going to check on me. And I'm not saying I agree with him. Most people are doing this all the right way. The bad actors are out there, and so it's currently on us as an industry
Yeah.
to handle ourselves.
Okay. Let's switch gears. Let's switch gears over to the conference because I know we all get to go to sunny Costa Mesa in the beginning of November. And so I want to hear, what are you excited about? Are there topics you can tell us that will be covered or keynote speakers that are coming that are exciting? So um I'll end it there. What do we have to look forward to?
So the roundtables haven't been announced or I think finally decided. So I love roundtables because you get the small group conversation and allows it. But I do know that we have topics that are like the Rogue IVF clinic. There's going to be a panel of adults born via egg donation and or surrogacy, which is always phenomenal. I love hearing the outcomes and their stories. I've been very lucky to sit on a panel with the offspring that resulted from my donation, which I call hatchlings. So that's the term
Okay.
I call them. I know offspring is it. I don't think that the donor conceived love that word, but I sometimes struggle in conversation. But I do call them hatchlings. Um, there will be talks on, unlikely intents of surrogacy and then facts and myths on psychomedications for surrogates. So I think that's great. There'll be a talk on nightmare cases, which is always really good to sit on so that you learn. And also in and out of advocating and educating surrogates, donors, and IPs. I love those topics because it's really that's really the meat of it. That's who you're helping, who you're working with. And if you can understand, okay, what happens in those nightmare cases, what plays out, what type of resources, how do I handle that, I will tell you, every meeting I've ever attended at Seeds, I learned something. And sometimes it's out of left field, but I
Yeah.
love getting feedback on nightmare cases or when attorneys go rogue or if a clinic goes rogue. Those are scenarios that as agencies, donors, surrogates, IPs, we should know. We should know how to deal with it. So I do feel like this conference, the topics are very applicable to what's going on in the world right now. And I do appreciate that.
Okay, so I'm a first timer. What's your advice to me? What do I absolutely, and because I also hear the parties get kind of wild at Seeds.
I will say I'm not really involved in all of those. I tend to, make my appearance and go. But yes, I think the cocktail hours and the breaks are great for connecting. And I do think that everybody should do those. Definitely find whatever really great roundtables and attend as many talks that apply to your environment as possible. The
Yeah.
conference is 2 days. The time goes quickly. You have some of the best minds in the third party reproduction field at that conference every time. So that's what I love about it. And there is no conference that I attend every single one except for this one. And that was well before I was on the board. So I strongly encourage it. And it'll give you definitely, for your portion, like, yeah, let's see. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a really good talk that's supposed to be how to keep the industry from burning down, which is they call it that, and they give them clever names and things. But I think that that's going to be a great talk.
I'll be going to that one. Yeah, because
Oh, for sure.
I think we, at least the folks at Simbi, we're just so preoccupied with how we can use technology for good. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's going to be a partnering for success talk that is really really good, and then kind of the warning signs of things. I think it's really great. The topics are going to be fantastic. They always are, but I think this year it just feels, and I'm sure that it's just a climate thing at this moment in time, as far as the culture climate. It's time to come together,
Yeah.
and it's time to talk, and it's time to really focus on what we need to focus on, and that is doing things ethically and legally correct.
Yeah. I need a kumbaya.
The whole world needs a kumbaya right now, but I think if we band together as an industry and as a profession, things will improve and we'll see less of these scandalous situations, is my hope.
Yeah, that is the goal. Okay, before I get into the magic wand, I just want to say one thing because I think I sit on another board and it's a board that funds scholarships for BIPOC youth, but it's a 100% volunteer board.
Nice.
And I just don't think ever people that are on 100% volunteer boards get enough recognition in terms of like this really is a labor of love that you're doing. I just want to say thanks.
Oh, thank you.
You don't have to do this. And this is you're doing this instead of doing something else, a hobby, or spend time with your family. And so I just want to take a minute and just recognize you and say thanks.
Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
it is definitely a labor of love. And I just love everything in this field, and I'm so excited to be able to support it and work with it and help grow it and develop it. And so thank you so much for recognizing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that goes for the whole seeds board. These people don't have to be doing this.
We don't.
You know?
We don't. And we work really hard, and we all take it to heart. And I will say the people on the board that I have worked with I'm coming up on my second year. It's some of the best people I've worked with professionally, hands down, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. All right, here it is, the magic wand. If you had a magic wand and could change one thing in the ethics landscape of surrogacy, what would it be?
This is such a hard question, mainly because it's one. So if I was going to just pick one item that I wish was definitely different, I probably would say um, required background checks for all parties: surrogate, partner, intended parent, partner. I truly believe that they all should have background checks. And I would probably, in a fantasy world, if it didn't bring a whole lot of other, I would probably want, fingerprinted Department of Justice level background checks.
Yeah. I think that's wonderful, and I'm actually surprised it's not required.
I, having been an adoptive mom and gone through that home study process, I
Exactly.
am actually surprised that the government hasn't stepped in that regard. I do know that it is recommended that we have those background checks, but if they were required, and there are some counties that do require that, I think that would change some landscapes for sure.
I think so too. I did not know you were going to say that,
Oh,
but now I do get to plug Cindy because we're just integrating background check into our platform. So that to talk about that later. But I think anecdotally, one of the things that we saw in the adoption landscape is we had people that looked amazing on paper. But I will never forget this family, and anybody that's ever had any interaction with me has heard this story. But we had this incredible on paper couple, both doctors, amazing pedigrees, lovely social skills. They're the kinds of people you're like, whoa, like you're kind of intimidated by them. And this diligent social worker had just a spidey sense about the woman. And so she decided to, in addition to married name, run her maiden name in background checks. And she had active cases open with CPS. Yeah.
yeah, and I do think that's a thing. And I do, again, it's very hard to stop someone who is intent on harming.
Yes. Yeah.
I know that the background check requirement is probably, there's probably more than one person that's surprised that that's going to be my answer. But I just think that there are some bad apples that would have been caught.
Yeah, I agree. Especially with technology, it is such a simple thing to do now,
Yeah.
that, it maybe adds $50 to the process and takes no time whatsoever. So it
Even
is.
if it was more expensive than that and you were doing Department of Justice and going in for fingerprinting, I'm telling you for sure there would have been some people that were caught that are involved in things that have come up. So it kind of gets into the intricacies. How do you require that, but then keep government out of privacy? Yes,
I know. Well, I'll be really excited to meet you in person at Seeds,
yes,
and
pretty good.
I am very grateful for your time today. And then if people want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
They can go to itstimessurrogacy.com or they can email me at Angela, Angela, at itstimessurrogacy.com.
Angela, thank you for your time
Thank you.
today.
Thank you for inviting me. It was fun.
Thanks so much for listening to The Future of Surrogacy. If you liked today's episode, send it to a friend or a colleague that should hear it. And be sure to follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn to keep up with new episodes and behind the scenes updates. And if there's a topic you want us to cover or someone you think we should talk to, reach out. We'd love to hear from you. We'll see you next time.